Okay, let's get started here. Welcome, everyone. Good morning, everyone. If we are, you're starting the day, welcome to this three-part series on mastering the art of VDI and cloud adoption, best practices and insights. Throughout the part 1 and 2, which we have done in the past, we have provided some great insights on strategic planning on design phase, which is a day 0 phase, and the useful tips on implementation part, which is the day 1. And today in part 3, we are going to talk about day 2 operations, post-implementation support, and this crucial role of proactive post-implementation support in maximizing the efficiency, reliability, and longevity of the VDI and cloud environment. So today we have two great panelists here, amazing experts. And so let's get started. First, let's go through the agenda for today. For agenda, we are going to do some introduction. We will then talk about the maximizing the productivity in day 2 operations. We will also talk about the strategies for mastering the day 2 operations. And then we'll talk about some real world use cases and success stories. In closing remark, little bit, we will talk about some promotions, and then in Q&A, you will be allowed to ask some question, and experts will take some questions from you and answer. Before we get started, let's have some housekeeping notes that let's get that out of the way. First of all, this webinar is recorded, and we will share the recording after the webinar. All the lines for attendees will be muted throughout the webinar. If you have any question during the webinar, you are allowed to put it in the Q&A box, which is underneath this, under the screen, where next to the chat window. And once we have all the questions at the end of the session, we will answer all the questions that is in the Q&A section. So it is my pleasure to introduce you our two amazing speakers here. We have Said Adil, who is the Vice President, North America for DaaS Cloud Operations. Said comes with over 21 years of experience in leading numerous large-scale IT operations, IT transformation projects for global cloud throughout all industries. And then we have Prince Tyagi, who leads the uninterrupted DaaS operations. Prince is a very seasoned technical expert in day 2 operations. And he has various cloud platform expertise, including VMware, Citrix, Microsoft, AWS, and GCP. Welcome, Prince and Said. I know you are going to give us a really good insights on the day 2 operations here. So with that, I want to go in the segment 1, which is maximizing productivity in day 2 for VDI and DaaS. So Said, to get started, please give us a little bit of insights on what is the day 2 operation, what's the importance of the day 2 operations, and give us some more insights on effective day 2 support for VDI DaaS environment. So over to you, Said.
Yeah, thank you so much, Neha, for the nice introduction. And we welcome all the participants for taking time to join this webinar. And me and Prince will hope to make this session as educational as possible. So now coming to your question, what is day 2? In our previous series, we have already covered day 0 and day 1. Day 2 is a phase of the business where the IT solution is already deployed. The transition from adoption is completed, and the business is ready to be handed over to the day two team or to the operations team. So essentially, that's what is day two. Now we are going to be looking at what are the key insights that we need to be considering for effectively supporting a business that has been transitioned from day zero, day one to day two. So I have categorized the key insights into the following sections. Neha, if you can please move to the next slide so our audience can see those sections. Thank you. So the key insights, as we can see here, we have categorized them into two sections. One is proactive actions and the other is processes. So when we talk about proactive actions, there are a few key actions that we should be undertaking as part of maximizing our day two productivity. So I'll try and break them down a bit further. The first aspect that we need to be considering is we need to have an effective and robust monitoring solution which monitors the infrastructure components end to end. By infrastructure components, I mean the server infrastructure, the network infrastructure, the end-to-end path that the application delivery traverses from the end user's PC towards the VDI. It will take multiple hops, and we need to track the performance and the application latency at each hop. We need to, if we're talking about links, we need to track the link latency and bandwidth. So essentially, for each of the critical components of the infrastructure, the key aspects that we should be monitoring are the CPU, the memory, the disk space, the reachability, the availability, right? And when it comes to links, we need to be considering the monitoring the egress and ingress uh, bandwidth. So we need to have a, essentially in terms of a proactive action, we need to have the first and foremost thing that we need to have is a robust proactive monitoring tool. And the next section under proactive actions, what has been listed is user experience optimization. How do we enhance the overall experience of the user? Now, we should be looking at the configurations of the various components in the DaaS infrastructure and looking at how we can optimize them. For instance, we could be uh, having different types of user profiles. Let's say there is a user profile who does a lot of graphic designing work, and there is another user profile who does back office work. So for the user profile which does graphic designing, we need to make sure we build and provide them the required level of VDI configurations. The high CPU, high graphics requirement should be met. And for the back office user or the kiosk user, we need to provide only the needed level of configuration. So both these profiles are different. So we need to make sure for each of the profile, we provide the optimized configuration. And further moving on, we should have some self-service mechanisms and tools available for the users so that some of the regular repeated tasks where user has to interact with IT can be avoided and user can do his productive task rather than spending time with IT. For instance, we can automate the process of password reset through a tool. User doesn't have to reach out to the support desk and give the details, authenticate, and then ask for a new password. So by having a self-service mechanism and the right tool deployed, we can minimize the user's interaction with IT. And under user experience, another aspect that we can be looking at is how do we review and optimize the user profile settings. Again, coming back to the first example of the engineering user or the graphics user versus the backup user, each user will have their own profile requirements. So we need to have the profile settings and configurations according to the user's profile. And to further enhance the user experience, we need to set up the required monitoring of various metrics in terms of availability, the critical SLAs of ticket response and resolution, and reducing the pending tickets and first call resolution and customer satisfaction metrics. So all these, if we implement in our day-to operations, we can optimize and enhance the user experience further. So the third option or the third task that we have listed under proactive actions is how do we effectively manage the resources and control the costs. So on the cloud, as we know, everything comes at a cost. So we need to make sure at any given point of time, our resources on the cloud are optimized in such a way that we don't have too many resources and we don't have too less resources. So we need to upscale and downscale dynamically based on the changing users' demands. And let's say we have 100 users at any given point of time, let's say during peak shift. And because of increase in business, we are adding 20 more users. So we need to be able to have a defined buffer so that we don't over capacitize ourselves or under capacitize ourselves. We need to have a defined buffer by way of which we can dynamically increase the number of virtual machines and reduce the number of virtual machines when the user count comes down below 100. So that's the way of controlling the costs and controlling the resources. And we need to be able to automate these processes of allocation and deallocation of resources for the resources to be efficiently utilized. And the other aspect that we need to consider under proactive actions is data backup and restoration. So we need to have a robust strategy for backing up critical data. We need to work with the application owners and the database owners and define a clear strategy and clear frequency of what are the critical data components that need to be backed up and at what frequency. And we need to be able to have process in place where we test these backup and recovery strategies. We need to ensure that the when we do the data recovery, the integrity of data is validated so that we when we actually have a disaster situation, there is no issues with data integrity. So we need to make sure these DR drills are done and data restoration is done and data integrity is tested. So these are what I would classify as proactive actions that any organization can take as part of their as part of the process of increasing the productivity in day-to operations. Now we will move on to what are the key processes that every organization need to follow, and that will help them increase the productivity. If, as you can see, we have listed about 4 processes. First thing is every organization need to establish strong ITSM processes which are based on ITIL, and every organization need to have a mechanism for their users to start reporting incidents and raising service requests, have a clear major incident management process, a problem management process, a change management, configuration management, and also how to take care of the patching process, ensure that antivirus patches are up to date. So all these are standard part of the processes that every organization need to ensure they adhere to if they want to succeed in managing their day-to operations. The other, the next aspect that I would like to cover is knowledge management. So we can have all the processes that we want, but if we don't have them documented, we are setting ourselves up for failure. So every process that we've just mentioned previously need to have a clear documentation available, and the infrastructure components, the connectivity diagrams, and the frequently asked questions, the known error databases, all these should be available for the technical teams at their disposal anytime they need them during a troubleshooting scenario or during the change scenario, all this documentation should be available on their fingertips and in the central repository. So this is one of the key parts of knowledge management. And one other important aspect that I would like to mention is for us to have a strong customer experience engagement process. So as we continue to support day two, it is very crucial to have a point of contact from the service provider organization who will work with the customer IT organization and act as a point of contact for all their IT needs in terms of issues, escalations, or new requirements. The customer experience manager is key, or in some organization, they call it as a service delivery manager for the same role. So that role is a very key bridge between the service provider organization and the customer organization. So we need to have that process for customer relationship management. And the last aspect that I would like to cover under processes is we need to have a strong OEM engagement in terms of the processes that we need to follow, the type of tickets that we need to raise for different types of issues, and also establish, along with the ticketing process, also establish an engagement at an account management level with all the OEMs with whom we work on a day-to-day basis. So if we run into a complex technical issue situation where the technical team or the TAM team are taking a lot of time to resolve the issues, and there are additional teams, architects and engineering teams are required to be engaged from the OEM side, we can do the right level of escalations within the OEM account management team and engage the right stakeholders so that they push their teams internally and help us resolve those complex, long-standing issues. So, Neha, these are the key insights that I would like our audience to know in terms of proactive actions and processes that we can incorporate in our day-to-day operations to maximize the productivity. Thank
Awesome,
you.
Said. This was very in-depth information, and I'm sure the viewers have got a really good grasp on how to increase or maximize the productivity. On this next segment, I want to invite Prince, and one thing is for sure that when we do transition from phase 1 to phase 2, the seamless support for VIDIA and DaaS journey is very important. So I want Prince to give us some insights on what are the game-changing strategy, what are the key information that they need to know in order to have that seamless transition. Yeah.
Thank you, Neha. Thank you. So yeah, we will talk about some proactive strategies for the seamless support in VDI and the DaaS environment, and which are essential for maintaining the optimal performance, user satisfaction, security, and compliance in your environment. So there are a few which we'll discuss. One will be compliance and the service improvement. So the first will be regular software update and the patch management. We should establish a routine for applying software updates and patches to keep the environment secure and up to the date. But before we pushing the patches into the production, we need to make sure that we are testing our patches and the software update in the control environment, which we call usually as a UAT. So we need to test those patches and the secure software updates in the UAT environment and take the confirmation from the user and then push into the production, so that we will not have any kind of issue when we push the patches and the software updates to the production. And also we need to ensure that the recommendation from the OEMs, from the hardware perspective, from the software perspective, the firmware and the regular update we need to push on a timely basis, so that we will be up to the date. And the second point will be the security audit and the compliance check. So security, as we all are aware, it is a very essential for all of us nowadays. So we need to perform regular security audits to identify vulnerability and ensure compliance with industry standards and regulations. So you can perform the regular audits internally as well as externally. So internet, there are free tools available all over the internet where you can test in your environment and check how's your vulnerability level or compliance level. Also, you can hire the external authorities which they can come and they can run the tools in your environment, and they will tell you about how's your security posture and what all the changes or implement security policies you need to do in your environment. Also, we need to make sure that we'll address the zero vulnerability in our environment immediately basis, because of as of now, nowadays, zero vulnerability is kind of a fix which can save us from the hackers or from any kind of viruses or some attacks. So that's also, we need to make sure that we implement the zero-day vulnerability also on the immediate basis in our environment to keep it secure. So the third will be the capacity planning. Capacity planning is the important aspect of the VDI. We can say that it's a good feature of VDI. So we need to regularly assess the capacity and resource utilization of the VDI environment, so that we'll have the forecasting of future requirement based, and if any user growths are there, any application demands are there, you can proactively allocate the resource and prevent the bottleneck or the overloads in your environment. And the next will be your continuous improvement initiative. We need to establish a culture of continuous improvement, encouraging your support team to identify and implement the enhancement of process and system, so that if there is any repeated issues there, you can uh, at least go back and analyze why it is happening, and you can implement that kind of fix in your environment. This type of issue will not come again. You need to conduct the regular reviews uh, from the past incident, and implement the preventive measure in your infrastructure. Also, we need to identify and implement the opportunity to consolidate the infra and to save the cost, because in another day we all need to save the cost for the customer. And I have a very good example recently, which I faced with one of the customers. They are running two infras in two geographical region, just because of they were having two domains. So when we, as an Ananta, we interacted, and we got to know in a day two. So we identify this there we can save the cost. So we combine the infra. So and both the domains, user are able to log in into the VDI, and we save the infrastructure cost for them, so they appreciate it. So that these things also we need to identify and work on these aspects, so that we can save the cost for the customer as well. And training and skill is also a you can say parallel thing. If you want to run your infra smooth and give the best user experience, that also we need to make sure. uh, these are the proactive strategies which we can make sure to run the smooth VDI environment. Over to you, Neha. Thank you.
So, Prince, thank you so much for that great information. I totally agree that the security and the cost saving is definitely the top things that we hear more often. So now, in order to move forward, in the third section, I know you both have a really good experience and years of experience in operations and data operations and support. So I want you to share some of your great case studies and give us some kind of a use case where viewers can have some information on what kind of use cases you have done, and some great input or insights from those case studies. So first, I will go with Said. If you can talk about this first case study about the business process management on the global BPM provider. So over to you, Said.
Yeah, thank you, Neha. So, talking about the case studies, we take a lot of pride in these sample case studies that we are going to talk about today, because we were thrown a very significant challenge. The first one that we want to talk about is the business process management. So we were thrown this significant challenge, and we had to build the infrastructure for the customer as per the customer requirement at a very short notice. So the background to this is the customer had to migrate approximately 5,000 users to remote working environment uh, due to the pandemic, and all these users were forced to work from home, and we were tasked in building that infrastructure very quickly and migrating all these users from different geographies, including Philippines, India, and US. So the challenges with the existing infrastructure was it was not equipped for working for. It was basically not equipped for remote working, and there was no business continuity setup available in that infrastructure, and rapid scalability was a challenge because the infra being on-prem and also a part of it being on cloud, and it could not be scaled beyond 500 users. And the biggest challenge was how do we reduce the costs associated with adopting of a stable, secure, and scalable cloud desktop solution. So that was a challenge that was thrown our way as part of the first case study. And in the next section, next slide rather, we'll talk about how we overcame the challenge. So the solution that Ananta provided was transitioning from the existing infrastructure to infrastructure of Horizon on Azure. So we custom build the infrastructure for the customer across these geographies. The backend infrastructure, along with business continuity, was built within 24 hours, and we had to build the subscription from ground zero and integrated the cloud infra in Canada, and then we migrated the first group of approximately 800 users to the new infra. And over the Thanksgiving weekend and Christmas weekend in 2020, we added additional 500 users. So all in all, at a very short notice, we had to migrate 5,000 users to this new infrastructure that we built. And as a result of this successful engagement with the customer, we got into multiple customer offered us multiple new engagements for their additional US and Jamaica regions. So what were the benefits for the customer? The employee performance and productivity significantly increased by up to 50% as they were able to connect from home without any change in experience. And many of these users were voice users. So although they connected from home, they accessed their VDI, there was no performance issues with their voice infrastructure. So, and the solution enabled accessing of the enterprise application, and the experience was the same as they would access and experience their applications from Office. And as I already mentioned, there's no degradation in voice quality. It was the same experience. So these this was the case study that I wanted to talk about, and there are a couple of additional case studies. I would let Prince take up the next case study. Prince, if you can, please.
Thank you, Sayed. Yeah, let's talk about the another case study, which is the best example I can say how VDI can be agile and so that you can scale your infrastructure anytime. There is a healthcare client for us in USA and which was using an on-prem VDI for 2,500 users with a complex set of application, and they can't afford any kind of downtime because of we all know how much critical is the healthcare sector. So Ananta designed it and migrated without any major issues and transitioned to the day two after the migration. And we migrated and also in the day two with a zero kind of issues or zero downtime. The key benefit from this migration from on-prem to cloud was for the better productivity, and also there was one thing they were managing their infrastructure locally, the on-prem, and if you want to manage your infrastructure locally, you need a IT hats, and you need to manage your infrastructure, your firmware, your hardware, everything need to be up to date, and also you need to patching. So there is a resources which you need on the ground every time to manage your infrastructure. So the key benefit was the lower IT head due to the centralized management. Now they are using DaaS, and because of DaaS, they don't need to focus on their hardware or any kind of this layer. They can focus on the other aspect or the new technologies. and also it increased the agility from the scaling perspective. Now they can scale up or scale down anytime, which is kind of costing for them, and it's kind of in minutes they can spin up the infra and they can scale down also. So these are the key benefits from this migration. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, so the third case study that we want to talk about is a security incident situation that our customer encountered with their on-prem media infrastructure. So we were tasked in designing and building a solution on the cloud, and we had to set up that infrastructure fairly quickly because the on-prem users were not productive, and we had to give them a clean new infrastructure. So we used Azure Virtual Desktop as the platform, and we built the solution, created all the required application profiles, and tested with test users. And within a matter of a few days alone, we were able to migrate all the close to 1,000 users, tested all the use cases, and the business was up and running. And with this migration, we ensured 99.9% uptime, enhanced the security posture for the customer, secured the perimeter, and this gave them an opportunity for the customer to scale up and scale down their users depending on their business requirement. So, Neha, these are the three case studies that we wanted to showcase today for our viewers. Thank you.
So with that, thank you so much, Prince and Said. It was awesome information and in-depth, overview of what the day two operations needs and what are the different strategies that we can use to maximize the productivity. So with that, I have a couple of questions over here. One of the questions that came up is, can you please detail the security measures that are essential for protecting data and ensuring the compliance within the VDI environment, especially in the high regulated industries like financial sector?
Yeah, I will take this up. So there are many security or compliance thing which you need to ensure within the VDI, and not only for the financial sector, for all the sector. And I will talk about some like basic regulation which we need to ensure we have in the VDI. So first will be, at least we have the encryption in place. So we should implement the end-to-end encryption for data transmission between the client device and the virtual desktop, as well as for the data at rest of the storage system. So encryption is very necessary for all kind of transmission if we want to ensure that compliance or any kind of security measures should be in the infrastructure. Second will be the MFA, the multi-factor authentication. It is a must thing for the VDI infrastructure or for any kind of infrastructure. We need to have this enabled for the VDI. We need to ensure that we are using MFA. Without MFA, it is a kind of breach of the security, and it is a highly risk in the infrastructure that anybody can hack us anytime. So we should ensure that MFA should be there in the place. And third, which I can say is network segmentation. Network segmentation means there should be a different segmentation with, you can say, different networks or separate network for the user groups or application or the sensitive data, whatever you have. You should have the different VLANs. So this should limit the scope of the potential security breach. If your one layer or one VLAN is breached, it should not be like your full infrastructure will be breached. So we should have the network segmentation in the place. The fourth will be the DLP, which is data loss prevention. So DLP solution to monitor and prevent the unauthorized transfer or leakage of sensitive data from your virtual desktop. So you can use the content filtering, encryption, and policy-based control also to enforce the data protection and policies to meet the compliance requirement. The DLP is also a very necessary step to ensure that we are compliant in our VDI norm. And the last but not the least will be the endpoint security. we need to implement the robust endpoint security solution on the client device, which is from where we are accessing the virtual desktop. This includes the antivirus, your endpoint detection solutions, or any kind of device encryption to protect against any kind of malware or data loss or any kind of attack. So these are some points. Over to you, Neha.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Prince. Another question we have is about the resource optimization here and how to optimize the resource utilization. So the question is, please elaborate the actions organizations need to take to optimize the resource utilization in VDI environment to ensure the maximum efficiency and the cost effectiveness.
Sure, I'll take this up also. So, yeah, I told you about the cost effectiveness is very important for all of us, and if it is kind of any kind of infrastructure it is. So we need to make sure if we are going to provide the best experience to the end user, also the cost effectiveness. The cost should not affect the end user. So before doing any kind of thing, we need to make sure that we are well prepared with the historical data, and then we need to do any kind of changes. So the right size first will be the right size of virtual machines we should use in our environment. Like if any kind of a user or set of user are working, and you just need to analyze or performance monitor from the back end from your tool, that how much the resource utilization they have, is they underutilized or overutilized. So we need to make sure that we'll align or we'll give the right sizing VM to them, so that they can work peacefully. Also, we can save our cost. I have very good example for this recently, which we have done it for one of our clients. So we have one of the client which we are running for Citrix on Azure. So there was VMs of infrastructure which are running on the higher end. It was 16 vCPU, 32 GB RAM, and it was running. So we analyzed that we can save our cost if we reduce the number of CPUs and cores or core in the infrastructure side, not on the user base. So it's not important every time we'll reduce the size of user, then only we can save the cost. So we need to make sure whatever analyze we are doing, it should be in the correct approach. So we analyzed and found out that if we reduce the number of cores in the infrastructure, there will be no impact. We took like around 1 or 2 months of data analyzed, and then we changed the VM size for them, and that's how we reduce the cost. Another one for the user aspect, we were using a F-series VM for around 2,500 users, and we observed that utilization is not that much high. Also, the requirement is not to use the F-series VM. So we moved them to D-series, and we solved the cost for the customer. So this is very important that while doing the changes, but we need to analyze also. And there are a few other things which we can do for cost effectiveness, like storage optimization you can do. You can use the profile management also. So there are a lot of things on which you can work, but before doing any kind of changes, we should analyze in the back end so that we take the right step in the right direction. Over to you, Neha.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that elaborative answer on that. We have time for one more question. So another question we have is, what is the emerging technologies or trend you see in shaping the future of VDI and DaaS, especially day two operations?
Yeah, I'll take that up. Thanks, Neha. So we've already seen the proactive actions and the processes that we need to implement for a successful day two and maximizing the productivity. And in terms of what we need to do to take the services to the next level in day two, we can possibly look at enhancing security by implementing a zero trust model where we don't allow, where we consider every device, every user, every application as untrusted by default and only allow the required access. So zero trust principle ensures organization mitigate security risks, protect sensitive data, and enforce granular access controls. And then the other aspect that we can look at is how we can adopt additional automation, maybe take it to the next level of AI-driven automation, machine learning automation, by automating tasks, routine tasks, like resource allocation, capacity management, performance optimization, and even for that matter, troubleshooting. So we can leverage these tools for troubleshooting and further enhancing the data operations. So additional, probably what we can consider is how we can move away from a single cloud environment and have a mix of on-prem and cloud. And if the organization is big, we need to have a on-prem plus multi-cloud hybrid environment. So we cannot go with the one-size-fits-all approach. Depending on the size and scale of the customer and the infrastructure required, we will have to adopt accordingly. So we also can look at what additional data analytics and insights we can perform, which, as Prince mentioned, which will enable us understand what are the usage patterns in those performance metrics, user behavior, and what actionable insights we can get to optimize resources and reduce cost. So cost is a huge necessity. Controlling cost is a huge necessity in the cloud. So we need to have all these data analytics and insights in place. So these are the few, if not all, the technologies and trends that we can adapt as we take our data services to the next level. Thank you. Over to you, Neha.
So to wrap up, thank you so much, Said and Prince, for giving us in-depth insights on the day-to support services. And I really want to thank all of the viewers here. Before we go, I want to just talk about the little promotion that we have just for this webinar special. And that is we are providing the 1-hour consultation for free. If you have any question or anything, please reach out to us. I have the email address over here. You are welcome to send us the email. If you have any question, if you need any information, we are happy to answer. And I thank you of the panelists. Thank you for your time. Everybody, thank you. This is the conclusion of part 3 of the webinars, 3-part webinar series, but we are excited to bring more and more webinars, such webinars that will give you more educational insights on the VDI cloud and any cloud computing kind of scenarios and situations. So please stay tuned, look for the email from us about the upcoming webinars. So thank you so much, everyone. And with that, we are closing this session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.